They are premium scale figures on paper, but because the detail levels are on the lower side, they are priced a lot cheaper. And I really wish that figures like this would be more common. They should be more common by every brand. Hi and welcome back to the channel. I'm Steven, today with a scale figure review from Fate Grand Order, FGO. This would be my first time reviewing a FGO figure in more than a year, or even in 18 months I think. Because yeah, Nikkei has been taking away my budget. But finally, I have gotten my hands on a Melusine figure. If you watched my videos frequently, you guys know that how much I love this character. Finally, I've gotten one of a figure, but embarrassingly, it is the cheapest one amongst the 3 available so far, I think. Yep, the Q-Skill one is over 20,000 yen, which I also want one, but I have no idea when I will purchase. And then the Fat Company one is not yet released. That should be like 30,000 yen or something, or more than that. Yes. At least I have one though. So we are looking at Good Smile Company's 1/7 scale ruler class Melusine from Fate's Grand Order. Official price before taxes is 16,818 yen. So after taxes would be like a bit over 18,000 yen I think. And release date was late September 2025, around 29th of September I think. So this one came out at least half a year ago at the time of reviewing this video. At the time of reviewing this figure. And speaking of the height of this figure, including the base, I've done my measurements earlier. It is 26 centimeters including the base, 25 without the base. So for a 1/7 scale, this is pretty tall. Right? This is somewhere in between 1/6 and 1/7 I think, which is nice, right? Bigger is better. But for a figure of this size and scale, she is pretty lightweight if you do not include the base. In fact, it feels like the base is half the weight of the figure. The base is heavy, reassuring, and makes the figure feel very stable. So in terms of stability, this is excellent. Right? She barely wobbles at all when I shake the figure. And for that reason, stability score for this figure is an easy 9.5 or even 10 out of 10. No problems at all. Right? This is what most anime figures should be like. You know, a heavy and stable base, enough surface area to support the weight of the figure instead of giving us a heavy figure and the base is being very hollow, very lightweight plastic and the figure can be knocked over easily. That kind, which is more common. This is something every figure should be like. Yes, nice work from Good Smile. So speaking of the box of this figure, the packaging, transparent plastic box again. Well, they don't really offer much protection to the figure because, you know, this is soft plastic. If the postman smashes a box, it is going to break the wings for sure. But in exchange, the box design is very attractive. So I have mixed feelings over here because the design of the box is like an easy 9 or 10 out of 10, but the amount of protection for the figure is like a 5 or 6 out of 10 maximum. So this is one thing to think about, but I'll take it. This is a nice box, right? So dimensions is reasonable given the figure we are getting over here and those wings over there, but the good news is that these wings are separate parts in the box. We need to assemble the figure, so there is less chance for the wings to break, right? In fact, whenever I see a pair of wings or anything similar in an anime figure, it feels like they should be separate from the figure, just to reduce the risk of breakage. Assembly was straightforward as long as you follow the instruction sheet. You're unlikely to have any issues. Now we move on to the sculpt department of this figure. Well, Good Smile Company rarely gives us any major issues when it comes to the sculpt department. So all is good over here. If we compare her to the official product pictures by Good Smile, they look identical. Face is also excellent, while the detail levels on the body and everything, I would compare this to the lower budget scale figures by Good Smile. No, Good Smile has been making 16,000 yen Blue Archive figures either in a plain dress or maybe in swimsuit, memorial lobby version. This figure is very similar to those kind of figures. They are premium scale figures on paper, but because the detail levels are on the lower side, they are priced a lot cheaper. And I really wish that figures like this would be more common. They should be more common by every brand. Scale figures that are actually in premium scale figure territory in terms of the quality and the paintwork, but not more than 20,000 yen. So I'm happy to see figures like this being executed nicely, right? So in terms of the sculpting, I do not see any gaps or seam lines. I don't see any glue leaking out. No mold lines, obviously, because this is a premium scale figure. So for the sculpt department, the entire figure, I would give it a 7.5 out of 10, not any higher because this is a lower detailed scale figure, but good enough for what it is. As for the face, yeah, the face is 9.5 out of 10, no issues at all. The face is very attractive. You know, she's pulling down her face mask. So maybe I'm biased over here, but I'll give her face 9.5 or 10 out of 10 because I like Melusine a lot and they nailed her face correctly over here. Meanwhile, for the paint work, you know, initially it looked like the figure is perfect. Looked like, right? When I was looking with my own eyes at this kind of distance, which is fairly close, I was looking for stuff like paint transfer, paint scratches, unevenness on the surface, and then what else? Paint bleeding, right? And I couldn't find any of those flaws, at least in my copy of this Melusine figure. And then when I took some photographs of this figure, you know, for the thumbnail of today's video, those were high resolution pictures. And while editing the thumbnail, the photo, I noticed a very obvious flaw when the image was zoomed in to 100%. So on the front of the hair over here, I suppose that it is not really visible to the human eye unless you look at her very closely like this. Yes, this screen recording says it all. So the surface of the hair in front, at least in this area, is not exactly very smooth, not very well polished. You see some small particles being stuck or being caught underneath the paint work. So this is something that unfortunately is fairly common nowadays across many brands, not just Good Smile Company. What happened was, the air in the factory, the area where they were painting the anime figure, the air over there isn't clean. There is some contamination. There is dust flying around, and dust particles were caught underneath the primer layer or maybe underneath the paint layer. So you got these small particles sticking out of the figure. And depending on how big the dust particle is, you may be able to see it with your own eyes, or you won't be able to see it unless you use a high resolution camera to capture it. So now I am kind of in a dilemma over here. Do I consider this to be a quality control failure? Do I consider it to be a flaw? Or it is really a non-issue because even I myself could not spot it with my own eyes, only my camera was able to capture it. Is it an issue? I'm not sure what is the right answer. Of course, if you were to ask one of my friends, I have a friend who is kind of a pro in painting anime figures, painting GKs, he would say that this kind of thing is unacceptable when we are paying so much money, $120, $150 or higher for an anime figure. Which he does have a point because he is good at painting anime figures. So you decide whether this is a problem or not. I'll let you guys decide. So putting aside this unevenness or small particles being caught underneath the paint, there is nothing else I could find. So the quality control overall is kinda good. This is once again a lower detailed figure, which means the outfit design and everything, they are kind of simple, less likely for the painter to make mistakes. So we do have some good news over here where the shading, the weathering on this figure is really heavy, and this is something I look for in every anime figure. So no matter where you look, her shots over here is very obvious. The shading is very heavy-handed. Even on the wings, on her sweater over here, the sweater is not that obvious because it is already dark blue, but you can see a bit of color gradients going on. And even the hair is also very obvious, a lot of color gradient. So I'm very happy to see this in this figure, this kind of painting. And for that reason, I would give the paintwork a 7.5 out of 10 as well. Admittedly, I was affected by the dust caught in paint thing in front of her hair. Otherwise, I would give her a solid 8 out of 10. And moving on to the base, obviously. This is a base that I am going to give very high marks. at least a 9 out of 10. And that one missing points over there, yeah, the base could have been, you know, a diorama, for example. Like, I don't know, man. Maybe floor tiles or maybe uneven terrain, whatever it is, could have been a mini diorama. That is what I love seeing in anime figures. But obviously, we did not get that over here. But at the same time, this is a heavy acrylic style base, very dense base. And it keeps the figure very stable. So I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. Yeah. And obviously, very shiny, very glossy base, which means easy to scratch accidentally. Do keep your fingernails short, I suppose. So arriving at the conclusion of today's figure review, can I recommend this Melusine figure? It is a big yes. Here's the thing, right? If you prefer the Lancer class of Melusine, then by all means go and buy the Q-Skill version. Because Q-Skill as a figure brand is incredible. Their quality control is also very good most of the time. And that one comes with big swords in both of her hands. That is the best thing ever for anime or game characters. No, big weapons in their hands. So yes, I do want the Q-Skill version. But if you are really on the budget, like not pop-up parade figure level budget, but you want high quality scale figures, yet you do not want to fork out too much money, this is the kind of thing you should be looking at. And for that reason, I think this Ruler Melusine figure by Good Smile Company is easy to recommend. Her price is mostly stable at the moment, between 15 to 18,000 yen price range. Not going up, not going down either. So pick one up if you are a big fan of FGO. It is a must-have. And that would be all for today's figure review. If you found it informative or helpful, please do give it a like and subscribe to this channel for more anime figure content. And until then, thanks for watching. I'll see you soon. Goodbye.